Okay, I think we're going live here. All right, I think we're live. Yeah, there we go. All right. So thank y'all for being patient with me today. I really wanted to finish the grade upgrade or the grade updates. I know everyone else wanted to as well. A lot of people, kind of sent me some emails back wanting to know, which daily writings are they missing, like where the attendance counts and things like that. So and I welcome all those questions. If you have a question about what your daily grade is, if you want to know which daily writings you're missing, you want to know which days you're missing as far as attendance, you have more questions regarding like how I graded it or any revisions you might want to do. Several people have sent me drafts of their P4, so I'm getting a lot of different emails and inquiries from a lot of different things. So I've responded to all of those at this point. I know there's a couple more that I need to catch up on as far as reading the drafts. Um, but hopefully that's going to be useful for you there. So be sure to check out the grade update. I just sent that out to everybody. And like I said, last time it's kind of rough out there. Like I'm doing as much as I can. We went over these policies last time. Here now, I think but there's only so much I can do. You know, like I mentioned before, and I know people are kind of struggling out there and having a hard time with some different stuff. But like for example, last time, a couple of days ago, 8 views, on the lecture between both classes that have like something like 38 students still enrolled in it. So, and the one before that was 16. Um, so I mean, it's rough out there. A lot of time in terms of attendance because remember you have to submit the daily writing now to get attendance because that's the only way I can get attendance. So you have to submit it for attendance. You should be reading it over it and doing it. It also counts as your daily writing, which does add up as well. So I'm trying to help y'all out as much as I can. And remember, I said you don't have to watch this live. If for some reason you can't watch it live, you can always go back, watch the replay of it, still do it for credit. I'm still letting people, if you missed it last week or whatever, I'm still letting people go back, watch it, do those daily writings because I know it is a little bit different. I've sent out, numerous emails about it. I changed it on the syllabus. I've talked about it a million times, but I know people out there might be struggling with different personal things, whether someone in your family is sick or whether, your parents are currently furloughed or laid off or whether you're laid off. You got financial troubles. You might be having to look after some of your little siblings. I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there, and I really sympathize with that. But, the course has to go on to an extent. So like I said last time, I am giving y'all all kinds of extra stuff that I'm trying to help you out as much as I can. I gave you an extra extension until Sunday. Realistically, for the P4, the big research essay, realistically, if you turn it in Monday, hell, even Tuesday, it's fine. I'll give you credit for it. But try to get it in sometime around then so I can start grading those. I'm going to try to have a much faster turnaround on that. I, too, am looking after my daughter. I understand how y'all are feeling. I'm looking after my daughter, 8 hours a day while my wife's working because she can't, the daycares are all shut down here. So I feel you guys on being busy with stuff during the day and having a bunch of extra responsibilities. I think everybody's going through something like that. So, I'm trying to help y'all out as much as I can. But at some point, you got to turn something in and show up in order to pass. But I'm trying to be as lenient as I can be. I've had some people that, were just turning in their project threes, this week. And, I do have to assign a little bit of a penalty there just because, it's not fair to other people that turn it in relatively on time if you're turning it in 3 weeks late with no penalty. But the penalty is very mild, right? If you turn in high quality work, in other words, even if it's late or whatever, you will pass the course, okay? If you turn in high quality work, you'll pass the course, okay? Regardless of if it's late or whatever, all right? So I'm trying to help you out. I'm not saying everybody gets an A. It's raining A's. Trust me, everyone is not getting an A so far in this class. Even if I wanted to give them an A for just like a participation trophy, if I said, hey, if you just turn in stuff and do the assignments, I'll give you an A, the GPA would still be really rough in our course. But anyway, so these were just a reminder of the stuff I'm trying to do to help you out. You get an extension on Project 4. Remember, you can still do revisions anytime during the semester for any essay. It's not a complete grade replacement, but if you make significant improvements, it can move your grade up a little bit. Just make sure you submit that rough draft and annotate it. I'll still take it, late or whatever. I'll still give you some credit for it if you want to do that. Make sure you're submitting the daily writings, especially for the lecture stuff, because it counts as absences. If you get to 4 absences or more, it's got that penalty, that minus 3%. Now, I've been talking with the director, and some other people are talking about maybe a little bit of leniency on some aspects of attendance. But if you miss a lot of days, there's going to be a significant penalty, right? So if you have, a crazy story about hardship and things like that, maybe I can overlook the 7th absence, maybe the 8th absence, and just give you the minus 3 instead of the NC for the course. I might be able to negotiate that with the department head. But like I said, they're very serious on this attendance thing, even in these dire times, okay? So if you get to that 7 or that 8, but you're still working hard, you're still turning in a lot of stuff, I'm probably still going to have to give you a little bit of that penalty, but it's not, I can probably negotiate with them to not give you a full fail given the circumstances, okay? So even if you've got 7 or 8, just email me, talk to me, let me know what's going on, just tell me you're going to submit all the work and try the best that you can to turn it in. You can probably still pass the course, okay? So I'm doing everything possible except for doing the work for you to try to get y'all to at least pass the course, okay? Remember last time, you can submit up to 5 daily writings for credit. I already gave y'all 5 on the house. We counted it up together on the syllabus. There's 29 total possibilities for daily writing. I made it out of 24 on the recent grade report. That didn't include the attendance from last class. That was 29 before last class, or the daily writings from last class. So I gave you 5 on the house for free, and now I'm telling you, if you put in the work and you do the next 5, you can still get credit for it. Okay, now there are students that did the full 29. That's why, there are some high achieving students, in both classes. And so to me, it's a little unfair to an extent that I'm basically giving people an opportunity to make up 10 of those, which is like a third of the daily writings. But at the same time, hopefully y'all can understand, if you're a high performing student, hopefully y'all can understand why I'm trying to help people out a little bit in here, given kind of the circumstances. So these 5 are not free. You do have to do them. Give me at least like half a page of writing, but you can make up to that amount. Okay. And then the SNC, now this is not finalized yet. I mentioned this. I still haven't heard any additional words on this, but you should, in a lot of your classes within the week or so, and I'll tell you as soon as I know about this, I'll let you know, you should be able to opt in for a satisfactory no credit for a lot of your classes. Now, for English, the department head has basically said it's still going to be the same cutoff. A 72 or higher is going to be considered satisfactory, and then a 71 and lower is going to be considered no credit. Now, once again, if you have a 71 or a 70 or something like that, if you're really close, we can find a way to get you into passing, all right? I'll say, hey, just do like 2 more daily writings, and that'll be enough to get you there. Or, hey, just like add in 2 more citations in this paragraph in your research essay, and I'll give you a couple of extra points, okay? So we'll find a way, if you're close, to get you to pass it. Don't give up hope. If right now you're in the 60s or something like that, and you're just wanting to pass the course, you can probably still do it if you just make up some of those daily writings, and then just do well on Project 4 and Project 5. I had one student earlier today, he emailed me, and, he was a real high-performing student, had an A in the class, and he was a little distraught that all of a sudden he had a B, because he went from like a 95 to an 85, but it was just an attendance thing, right? He had missed the first couple of video lectures. I let him make it up. He didn't get the attendance penalty anymore, and then I said, if you just do those 5 extra daily writings, calculate it out for him, he'd go from an 85 to a 95. Like, it's that extreme sometimes. If you just get out of that attendance penalty, if you miss the first couple of daily lecture things on YouTube, if you just watch them, get out of the penalty, and then make up 5 of those daily writings, you can see like 10-point swings in your grade sometimes. Like, it's a big deal. So, I'm trying to help y'all out. but just make sure that you're doing your best to help me help you. I can only give you credit for what's turned in, right? I can't turn it in for you. And then the W deadline is extended to the 22nd as well. So I would say if there's a really high chance that you're going to fail and there's just no way you just don't have time for this class given everything that's going on, or you don't have time for another class, consider a W. Now talk with your academic advisor, because once again, that can drop you below full-time status, right? If you drop below full-time status, that can hurt your financial aid potentially if you go to partial. Now, I don't know what full-time is these days. I think it's 15. It used to be 12 back in the day. But if you're taking 18 hours, you might be able to take a W in one of your classes and still reach full-time status. Whether it's this class, whether it's chemistry, calculus, whatever class is just impossible for you. This class, I really don't. It's just almost unfathomable how this class is impossible to pass for some students. You just do something, anything, please, and you could pass this class. But anyway, so that is an option, though. So these are all changes that the university made. These are changes that I made to try to help you out for the course. But I just want to reiterate all those just because it looks like only, 8 people watched the last one. Just hopefully maybe some more people watched it that this might apply to. So anyways, I just wanted to reiterate that. And, after looking over some of the daily writings, I just figured we'd take today just to kind of slow down a little bit. We have a bit of time in this unit just to kind of slow down and let y'all work a little bit more, let y'all catch up. I know you're catching up in your other classes. I know you're catching up, maybe in this class with your research essays and things like that. I know everyone's kind of been thrown for a loop here, so I figured we just do almost the same thing we were setting up last time. I'm just going to let you go find some proper nouns. And I figured what we do to make this live stream kind of interesting is that I can just live try to research a topic for you and give you information about it. So if you're watching out there, if you're one of the 3 people currently watching this will be sort of your treat if you want to. You can tell me a topic, tell me a subject, something that you're thinking of doing, and live on the stream, I will go try to research it and show you an example of how you can do the research and the kinds of things you can be looking for. And I'll even type up some notes, like if I was doing this assignment myself, what kind of notes would I be taking as I'm researching these different things. So if you have any ideas, over the next few minutes, just post it in chat. Just say whatever topic you want. I haven't looked at these ahead of time, so I don't know. So we can work through if we run into some weird stuff. I can walk you through some weird stuff. Like yesterday, we found that cool webinar about biopharmas, and it was accidentally taken down. Then we had to go find something else. So I can just walk you through some extra examples and let y'all get some proper nouns. Because, even looking through some of the highest performing students from both classes, everybody was still kind of in a really vague, exploratory, kind of mode for this last assignment. And frankly, we do have a lot of time for this last assignment. I've mentioned this before. This last unit was supposed to be a team project before COVID. Supposed to be a team project where you were working with 3 other people and you're supposed to be going out, doing interviews, learning video editing software, like editing down videos to present your research from Project 4, and then you're supposed to design an interactive activity. It's going to be like a 20-minute presentation. So it had all these moving parts that required a decent chunk of time, and then we were also budgeted to spend 3 or 4 classes like watching the live presentations, watching those 20-minute presentations, right? And so now, that we can't do that anymore, the one assignment I could think of that kind of made sense for this was the cover letter. But typically when I've taught this in the past, it's only been, we've only spent maybe 2 or 3 classes on it. Now we're spending like 5 to 7 classes on it, so we have much more time. Yeah, you can do revision for the late work, Jeff, sure. Yeah. So even if you turn in stuff late, you can still do revisions for it. It's completely fine with that. Yeah, even if you didn't turn it in, even if you're somebody out there that did not turn in at all any of the essays, you can still turn it in, as a revision to the 0. Once again, it doesn't fully replace the grade, but if if you write something that's quality, even if it was project 1 and you submit it the very last day that you can submit it for revisions and it's quality stuff, you can probably at least get a passing grade, right? I'll probably at least give you, like a 72 or so. So if it was like an A quality essay, but, you know, it's 3 or 4 months late or whatever, you know, you can still probably get a C on it. Okay. So the A's are still kind of, you know, kind of rare, kind of coveted, but the passing, especially for an English 101, especially given the circumstances of this semester, you know, the passing threshold is definitely even easier than it has been in the past. And it's usually pretty easy to pass my class. I would say not everybody gets an A. My grades are usually a little bit higher than the average in English departments, but or in the English department, but everyone can pass. Okay, if you're just doing stuff, you know, turning things in, putting some good thought into it. Okay. So yeah, so just work on some of these proper nouns a little bit more. Use Google, use Wikipedia, Amazon, you know, and try to work on innovation. You know, think about specific people, like actually do it. There were a couple of people that wrote down in their notes specific people, and try in your daily writings, you know, try to give me at least half a page. You know, some people just copied the questions and gave me like one sentence for each question. It's like, try to go a little bit more in depth if you can. I know everyone's super busy. I know that some classes are probably going to have to get pushed to the sideline because other classes are just a lot harder at this semester, and, you know, all of these adjustments. So, for example, I know if you have like a 98 in here, but you're failing your calculus class, you're going to spend a lot more time on the calculus class. I totally get it. You know, when I was a student, you know, there was almost always one class where it was like, you know, I can't, maybe I don't read everything for that class. Maybe I, you know, don't spend as much time on it. And that's perfectly natural. I know most people in here are not English majors as well. So I totally get it, guys. But at the same time, I have to have, you know, standards for something. And I try to be reasonable. I try to be aware that y'all are taking 15 to 18 hours, working jobs, taking care of siblings, worried about all kinds of stuff, maybe dealing with illness in your family, things like that. Totally get it. But at the same time, like I said, I'm doing everything I can, but there still has to be a standard for the course. So I'm trying to be reasonable. But please try to give me at least a half a page. You know, I said a full page at the beginning of the semester, but for this, especially because you can do it, you know, kind of at your own leisure over the next few days, try to give me that half a page there. Okay. So yeah, try to find some of these proper nouns. Think about one of your topics. So, you know, think about Google, think about Wikipedia, Amazon. What's going on in your field? What's an innovation in your field? A lot of people did not answer this one. You know, some people said, well, I might want to go into counseling. Well, I might want to be a teacher or whatever. And that's good, you know, but try to spend a little bit of this time looking for these proper nouns. Okay, who are some, what, just at least see if you can think of an innovation in your field. What's something new and different that's going on in your field, and see if you can go find like an Amazon book or an article about that, or a TED Talk, an interview on YouTube, anything that's talking about that innovation. But see if, you know, for this class, if you can at least find an innovation in your field. What's going on? What's new in psychology? What's new in marketing? You know, what's new in chemical engineering or whatever, right? So see if you can find some stuff like that. How is that disrupting the industry in some way? And then, you know, once you have that kind of figured out, then see if you can figure out how does your organization relate with that in some way, right? How has your education experience prepared you for that disruption? Okay? So see if you can find either an Amazon book or a TED Talk, YouTube interview, you know, like I said, just anything out there that's going to give you more information about this, particularly if it's an innovation that you're interested in. Now, I know some people, you're not going to, you know, laser focus know what you're going to want to do, you know, in 3 years when you're applying for an internship or grad school or a job, and that's fine. But just getting the practice of figuring out what's going on, just being aware, and then figuring out, you know, how do you want to approach that, right? That's a good skill set to have, even if your idea changes. Even if you say, right now I'm going to law school, you know, I want to go to law school, I don't know what I want to do, maybe something with intellectual property law. You look up some stuff about copyright and you change your mind later, it's perfectly fine, but at least you had the practice of understanding, like, I need to look this up, I need to look up something in the field and trying to match it with a specific program. right? So we did a couple of examples last time, and like I said, just type in the chat if you want. I can look up your topic right now and give you a bunch of free research if you want. It's just kind of a bonus for the 3 people that are in here chilling if you want me to do that, or a topic like yours. But I can, go through and look up live one of these topics and kind of walk you through how we'll do it. If no one gives me a suggestion, I've got some ideas that I read from the daily writing I can do, but I'm going to give y'all, the people that are watching this live, a little bit of a chance to chime in if you want to. But we walked through this some last time. So right, we looked at UT Law School, say, okay, you want to go to law. We looked at corporate law. We found a professor who specialized in it, and then we okay, thank you, Ellie. Ellie's given us a suggestion. Transcranial magnetic stimulation. Okay, that is very specific and very interesting. Yeah, we can look that up. Okay. So yeah, we looked up law school last time. We looked up business, particularly in terms of branding and kind of the gig economy. So go back, look at that from the last video if you want to catch up in that. But yeah, we can go ahead and look that up. And just keep in mind, in general, I gave you guys a website to help you find internships that you might be interested in. And remember that an internship doesn't necessarily have to exist, or a position doesn't have to exist for this job currently. You can make one up if you want, but that can just give you some ideas of the kinds of internships that are out there. So, make this as useful as possible for you. I mean, it could be something personal as well that you might want to apply for down the line, just like a dream job instead of what you might actually want to do. If you don't know what you might actually want to do, that's fine. But I just went ahead and gave you that just for some ideas. Okay, so let's see here. Ellie wants us to check out transcranial magnetic stimulation. Okay, so where I would start with that is trying to figure out what that is. Okay, so I would first type in, start with Google. Okay, so TMS. I'm going to see if there's something like that on Wikipedia here, because that's going to give us sort of a really broad idea of what's going on. Okay, so repetitive transcranial is a non-invasive form of brain stimulation in which a changing magnetic field is used to cause electric current at a specific area of the brain through electromagnetic induction. Okay. Connected to a magnetic coil, which in turn is connected to the scalp. Okay, so like the image over here. Diagnostic and therapeutic potential as a central nervous system with a wide variety of, so neurology and mental health. Okay, so it could apply to something in neurology as a field, or it could apply to something as mental health in a field. So this is one of those things we talked about earlier in the semester. It's one of those really innovative, sort of groundbreaking technologies, it sounds like, that combines different fields, right? So that's really where a lot of the innovations have been in the last 30 years, or really probably of all time, is thinking of stuff that had not traditionally been sort of connected with each other and then all of a sudden connect him. So that's interdisciplinary research, for those of you that want, and you'll hear that buzzword all the time out there, but this is the kind of thing that it is combining neurology with mental health, things from different fields. Okay. So medical uses, non-invasive, not a lot there. Diagnoses, treatment, fields of neurology. Okay, so once again, just clicking on that. Physics. Okay, so talking about how it works. We'll skip that. If you want to do the physics side or the biology side, we could do that, but let's say that we're most interested in how this can be used clinically, and let's just say mental health, because that side's probably easier for an amateur like me to understand. Okay, so this is talking about if it's covered with commercial health insurance or Medicare, United Kingdom, cost, providers. Okay, so let's see if we can find something on... Okay, so this might be a book that we'd be interested in that we could find. Transcranial. So it looks like the technology's been around for a little bit. There's a 2014 book about it. Clinical guide. Clinical neurosciences. Okay, how I overcame depression with it. Okay, so now we're connecting it with mental conditioning. So maybe I think this is pretty interesting. Maybe I want to look at depression and how that fits in. Antidepressants. Tamara Rhodes describes her 30-year journey with severe recurring depression. Okay, so this is going to be a personal account of how this works. This is not the clinical side. This is kind of the personal side. So if you wanted to learn more about this, and you want to hear it, so it's a pretty small book. I'm not sure if that would count as like an ebook, but it could certainly help give you some perspective if you're wanting to go into the field, how a subject, or a patient rather, sort of experiences this and thinks about this. Okay, so let's see another one here. Psychiatric practice. So how does this fit in with other practices? Edited by clinicians. Practitioner needs to know. Okay. Oh, it's not going to give us the look ahead. Okay, let's see if we can find another one to look ahead. Okay, but let's look at these authors here, okay? Let me write some of this down real quick. Go to daily notes. And I'll just call this. I'll just pull this out to here, and I can maybe give y'all a copy of this, but okay, so what I'm gonna do is I just, like we were doing for the research for Project 4, just anything that I see that could be interesting or could be useful to me, I'm just gonna write that down. Okay, so this is... just a couple of things that we found there. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight that. And now let's look at some people here. So let's just get the names of some of these authors. If they have an author to like one of the textbooks in there, it's probably a pretty good chance that they know quite a bit about the field, and they might actually teach at an institution, or they might have TED Talks or YouTube Talks about it. So let's just see if we can build a proper noun list again. This is what you're looking for, just proper nouns all over the place. So Richard Bermudez. And y'all can go ahead and write and do your own thing too. I'm just kind of doing this on the side just to kind of walk you through how I would do it once again. Bermudez, Carl Lanicha. And Philip Jonasak with one L. Jonasak. Okay, so there's a couple there. And if you have other ideas, just let me know. We can see if we can get through one or two of these. Hey, what's up, Rory? How are you doing?
I want chocolate chips.
You want some chocolate chips? Here, we'll go talk to Mommy about the chocolate chips. She'll give you some, okay?
No.
Yeah, Daddy's working.
No. Ow.
Rory, trying to get some chocolate chips, okay? Rory, Mommy's got you some in there. Mommy's got you some. Go get them. Go get them for Mommy. Okay, okay, so this one's a bit older, but it's certain methods. Midlife. Honey, can you bring her some chocolate chips? She's having a meltdown.
Mommy's also having a meeting right now. Come on, let's go do, what do you want?
Yay, fun with toddlers, and both parents are in work meetings. Awesome. She just really likes it when I give her the chocolate chips. We're gonna hang out in a little bit, Rory, okay? Okay. Alexander Rottenberg. Let me see what this is in here. Rory, what do you want? You want to sit in here with Daddy? If you can be quiet, you can sit in here with Daddy. You want to sit in here?
I want to with Daddy.
What is it, Rory?
I don't give him with Daddy.
What? Here, you want to sit up here? Rory, what is going on?
No, I give him with Daddy.
So you could find transcranial magnetic stimulation. Rory, what do you want? Mommy's
I
giving you
give
chocolate
him
chips.
with Daddy.
Look, chocolate chips here.
Daddy.
Here you
I
go.
give him the M&Ms.
Do you want to watch a video?
You want to watch a video, Rory?
I want some M&Ms.
Yeah, we can play in a little bit. Those are some M&Ms.
I don't want them.
It's okay, Rory.
I don't
It's a little
want
past our
them.
nap time, too. Here, Rory.
I
We'll play in a little bit.
You.
It's like, I don't want this kind of chocolate. I want some other chocolate.
Rory, come on. Let's go find something. Let's go find him in the kitchen.
Okay, sorry, guys. That's just one of the things. You know, I'm trying to teach at home. I usually give her, you know, I'm hanging out with her a lot during the day, like I said, so she wants to hang out with me. And she likes the these chocolate chips that my wife likes to eat too. She likes to eat them also. Anyways, okay. Okay. Thank y'all for being good sports about that. Okay, so TMS device. So let's see if we see some of the same names here that we've seen before, because that usually means they're a leader in the field if you see them multiple times. Joan. So these are all like chapters, Jared. Zangan. I think there were a couple of them in there, but we'll just go with the editors again and look here. Okay, so we'll do Alexander Rottenberg. Okay, so we've got Alexander we'll just do this a couple of times. Jared Horvath. Just so we have a good name list. Just getting those proper nouns. It's all about the proper nouns when you're trying to do research. Jared Horvath and Alvaro Pascual. Leon. All right, we'll do one more set here. Okay, she got her chocolate chips. She's all good. Hey, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, she has a lot of fun, but she just really likes to spend some time with her dad. She likes for me to do certain things, and she likes for my wife to do certain things. She likes for me to give her sweets and change the TV channel, and then she likes for my wife to put her to bed. I don't know. She just has a very specific set of things that she likes for people to do. Oh, here's the picture that was in the Wikipedia. That means it's got to be important. William McDonald. Okay, let's do this last one here. Okay, so Eric Wasserman. Now, some of these look European, which is fine, but that means they probably don't teach at a university in the United States. Charles Epstein. And Ulf Zyman. So if we're looking to go to grad school, you know, we would want to see if we can find, because these are real people that probably teach at a university, most likely. They might be clinicians, practitioners that aren't, but usually people that are writing books are involved in academia. So let's go ahead and check this out here. Bermudez. Is that right? Okay, Bermudez Richard, MD, TMS. Chief Medical Officer, TMS Health Solutions, Treatment Management, founding board member. Okay, so he's part of some board here. Talks about his different publications. Doesn't look like he's at a university. Chief resident. Fellowship. Okay, so he held professorships and clinical appointments at the University of Cincinnati, University of California, Davis. Lectured on topics from homelessness and mental health to co-occurring mental and physical illness. Okay, and then he left the field and started his own foundation. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in so this may not have been on your radar originally, if you were interested in this topic, if you're thinking about grad school, but if you're interested in things like, homelessness and mental health and how that relates with TMS and things like that, or if this foundation sounds interesting, TMS Health Solutions, if you've never heard of that and you wanted to apply for like an internship and just see what all they have, you could go look this up in addition to trying to find a grad school that specializes in TMS. He might even know, like if you email him and you're like, hey, I really want to go to grad school for this. Do you have any suggestions? Where are some really hot schools? I'm like trying to build a list right now, and I really want to focus on this type of stuff. I love your work. I read this book that you wrote, or I'm really interested in this aspect of it. He'll probably tell you. He'll probably say, okay, yeah, here are some of the really good grad schools doing some great research on this. Or actually, we're going to offer an internship on this perhaps next summer. Here, you can apply. Here's some details about it. So don't be afraid to email people like this, when you're going out there. Maybe they don't respond. I mean, the worst they can do is say no or like not respond to your email, but it doesn't hurt to give them a shout out, right? So they might know more information. They might be able to give you some scholarships, some fellowships, hook you up with an internship, or at least tell you how to apply. Give you a list of good grad schools. I mentioned before, the guy who wrote the book, The Lotus and the Lion, that I was really interested in. I just emailed him. He wasn't at a school I could go to that had a PhD program. He taught at the University of Colorado Boulder. But he gave me a list. He's like, hey, these programs are really good in it. You should think about this. Or here's some other hot articles in the field or other books that you might want to consider that have a lot of interesting things to say about your research interest. So you never know. Just drop them some emails. Hey, what's up, Jeff? What made me want to be a teacher in general, just as an aside question, rather than, I suppose you mean counseling? Well, I just, I don't know. I like helping people out. I just like education in general. I've always been kind of an educator, sort of a leader thing. I'd actually thought about, I graduated, and I won't go too far off on my own personal thing here. We'll get back on our research, but just to answer Jeff's question, I graduated undergrad with English, philosophy, and religious studies, and none of them, and my English was in creative writing, so none of them had like really easy, direct career paths, right? And so I just spent a few years after grad school working in a restaurant trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I kept submitting to MFA programs for English, thinking I was going to be a fiction writer, and that's what I wanted to be. And then one of my buddies, I was just drinking with him at a bar. He was in from out of town, from New York, and I was just telling him about, this new story I was working on and stuff like that. And he's like, you really seem to enjoy like analyzing, this story and talking about these other things more so than actually writing it. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And he was like, well, why don't you just do literature or something instead? And I was like, huh. And so then I switched over and applied for English Lit. I'd been rejected from grad school twice for fiction writings. I didn't really take it seriously. I didn't do this kind of research. I was really underprepared, even though I was a strong student, right? Like I had triple major, 391 GPA, didn't matter. I didn't do this stuff. I didn't research the institutions. I didn't research the people I'd be working with. I didn't market myself very well. I was just like, well, if I submit a cool short story, of course they'll take me. No, it's not how it works. So, anyways, then I applied for literature, got in that year. And then and I hadn't really thought about teaching that much. Like I thought it might be interesting, but then I started teaching, taught class, and I was like, hey, I really enjoy this as part of my grad school experience. And so I just decided to stick with it. But I had been thinking about law school. My grandma really wanted me to go to law school. I probably could have been okay at that. Well, I was thinking about doing criminal defense, and then a friend told me, are you sure you want to do that, man? Because he'd been kind of in and out of the prison system a little bit. And he's like, I'll tell you, those lawyers do not look very happy going in and out of the jail all the time. And I was like, well, then I thought, some people need to do it, but maybe it's not for me. So anyways, and then I had thought about going into psychiatry in high school, but then I took physiology, and I was like, that's way too much memorizing. I do not want to go to med school. It's interesting, it's cool, but I just like narrative and stories and working with people a lot more than kind of the hard sciences. So I got to, UT, and I was just like, taking biology 1, biology 2, and that's it. I'm done with science. Tested out of calculus from high school. I was like, all right, I'm done with math. And then everything else was humanities stuff. Okay, Ellie's. I mean, we can do some while y'all are writing. Y'all can write if you want, but I can answer some of these kind of professionalized and education questions if you want. So Ellie asks, do you have to major in education to become a professor? What are the steps to becoming a professor? Okay, so to teach something like high school or like K through 12 education, it depends on the school. UT has a minor in secondary education if you want to teach a high school, and you have to major in the subject. So you have to like major in English and then take education as a minor. And then typically, I think a lot of places require I think it's a 1-year master's. It might be a 2-year master's in education to really actually get hired at a high school around. If you teach like an elementary school, I think you can major in anything, and then secondary, just get the secondary ed minor, I believe. You'd have to look up the requirements on the education headline, or on the education department's website. It's a separate school from the humanities, and they'll tell you that. But that's how you teach high school, which is different. If you want to teach at the university level, then you have to get a PhD in the subject. In theory, most of the time, to get high quality jobs, you have to get a PhD. My dirty secret is that I haven't worked on my dissertation in like 4 years. So I've done all the coursework. I have a master's, but I haven't completed my dissertation. I've just been loafing on it. Haven't been motivated. It's rough. But I can still finish it. I have like a year and a half to finish it. But typically you have to finish your dissertation. You have to finish your PhD. And then after that, sometimes you get hired on or not. Now, how it works typically, if you want to go tenure track, and we'll get back to working on this stuff in a second, but no, that's fine. I mean, hey, there's only 3 people watching right now. It's kind of a chill day anyway, so why not? I'm sure a lot of people might be interested. And this is how it works for a lot of the humanities. So if you're doing anything, in psychology, history, English, even like biology, a lot of the hard sciences, anything that's going to be in academia is going to be very similar to this. You first have to go get a master's. That's 2 years. You apply for that. It's competitive. I think my master's program took 15 people out of 300 applicants, so that's competitive. You get in. That's a 2-year program. You take usually 2 courses per semester, or when you're not teaching, you take 3 courses per semester, and then when you are teaching, it's 2 courses per semester. You teach 1 or 2 classes depending on the program, and then you have to write a thesis, which is basically like somewhere between 60 to 100 pages, big research paper about your topic, and you have to pass your oral exams, which are basically like a 2 to 3 hour interview where they just grill you on your thesis, and they grill you on it varies depending on the school, but some reading list. So the reading list at UT, where I got the master's, was they gave you a list of 300 works, and they said, we can ask you about any of this. You have 1 year to prepare, go. Basically. And then you have to, I think it was 2.5 hours at UT, and 2 hours are just answering questions from that list. And then about 30 minutes was answering questions from my thesis. And at UT, the way they would formulate the questions, they did it in a really cool way where it was basically they would ask you something really broad, and you got to choose the literary works that you wanted to do. So they didn't say, hey, this book, what happened on page 300? They allowed you to create a story yourself of how you think the information would be useful. So like one question was, okay, so, and I wrote about George Eliot, this Victorian novelist. They said George Eliot wrote this essay called Silly Women and Silly Women Novelists. What did she mean by that, and how did that apply to 19th century British authors? And so I went on talking about, Jane Austen, and just a bunch of other, George Eliot and a bunch of other female authors from the time period. Or someone else said, okay, you're assigned a literature course on 18th century literature. Which 3 works would you include? And why do you think they'd be useful for teaching a 100 level lit class? And so then you had to just come up with, and you didn't have these questions beforehand, you had to think of it on the spot. And then another one was with my dissertation, or with my thesis, was like, okay, you talk about universal compassion and Judaism in this part of your thesis. How would that apply in the Renaissance? Like, what would they think about that aspect of compassion? How did that apply to thoughts about Judaism in English literature at the time? And so they just ask you all these really, like, crazy questions like that, and you have to try to answer it as best you can. So that's the master's, and most programs are going to be like that. And then you have to apply for a PhD, which is an additional 5 years. 5 years, if you can complete it in 5 years. On top of that, a lot of people take 6 or 7. And that's a similar thing. You take a bunch of courses. It's competitive to get into. I think my PhD took 200 applicants. They took 4 people in literature. And then you just take a bunch of coursework on stuff. You have to take the same kind of exams. They're just usually a bit harder, oral exams. And then you have to write a dissertation, which is basically like a book, like 200 to 250 pages, like super specific about your topic. And then after that, you get to apply for something that's called a tenure track job. So tenure is almost like a union job in academia. So that's, you first start off as an assistant professor. If you get that, super competitive. They'll take one person out of like 400 or 500 applicants. They'll take one person for a tenure track job. And you basically get to teach 3 courses. You have to be able to go like almost in the middle of nowhere, like anywhere that'll take you. If you want to make it, you literally have to apply almost anywhere. They'll take one person, you teach 3 classes a semester, and you have to publish a book or like a ton of articles. Usually it's a book. You have 3 years to publish a book. If you don't, you're fired. And you have to go back to the drawing board. If you do, and you get your tenure reviewed, then you get promoted to associate professor. Once you get that, you're sitting pretty, you're making big money. In like an English department type of thing, assistant professor might make like 60, associate professor might make like 75. And then you pretty much get to keep your job indefinitely as long as you don't do something crazy. You're kind of set at that point if you can make it past assistant. And then there's this like coveted mythical full professor, which is almost never given out anymore. And that's where you teach like one class and make like 6 figures a year that everyone thinks about for professors. Now, the tenure track people are probably about maybe 1/4, like 25% of the people you actually interact with in front of your classes on college campuses. The other 75% are what they call non-tenure track. So you'll hear this called lecturer or adjunct. This is the type of person that I am. I'm classified as a part-time lecturer right now, and that's very, very different. I won't tell you the money aspect of it, but it is far, far less. Far less. You don't have any guarantees of your job. It's basically semester to semester. If they need you, then you have a job. If they don't, then you don't. It's a semester by semester contract. And even that's pretty competitive. A lot of people, try to apply for that and don't. And it's that way in almost any field. So I would say, if you're thinking of going into the humanities, or anything like that, you need to really love and enjoy the field, because it is going to be rough, probably. It's very competitive. And a lot of grad schools are up front. They're starting to tell people about this more. They told me about it. They tell everybody about it. When you go to grad school, they're like, hey, it's going to be really hard. You're probably not going to get tenure track, and you're probably going to die poor and alone in your car when you're 40. Though they don't tell you that. But anyways, but they tell you that, but then you come in thinking, oh man, I can be the one person to get it. It'll be fantastic. And all of this stuff. And some people do make it, but if you really love the job like I do, then you can make it. But I would say, don't come in thinking you're going to be a big shot, making big money, all this kind of stuff. It really has to be you love the research, or you love the students, or probably both. Because you're gonna be making no, it's all good. It's all good, Jeff. But you're gonna be making less than high school teachers usually, and that's the crazy thing, is a lot of times high school teachers make more than most people that you see teaching at the college level, which is just mind-blowing for a lot of people, because it requires an extra 7 to 8 years of highly competitive, like very rigorous training, and you're much more disposable than high school teachers, and you make much less money than high school teachers. So it's pretty messed up. It's like one of America's darkest secrets. But and English is like the Rolls Royce of humanities. There are like more jobs in English than almost anything else, because everyone's required to take English 101 and 102, right? If you're something like history, I guess people are required to take certain kinds of history, but it's far harder. Or philosophy or psychology. Psychology's, there's probably still some stuff with that. Psychology, you can do clinical stuff though. You can go into counseling. You have other direct job prospects you can do outside of academia. But I do have a side job, Jeff, that I do, but I don't want to go into it. I don't want to get too TMI. But yes, I do have a side job that I spend a lot of time on to try to earn money. And my wife has a pretty decent job, and we're both like super cheap. So yeah, I didn't want to make it, like ultra TMI, ultra personal, but Ellie was asking about it, and I know a lot of people are curious about that too, because a lot of people, want to go into the humanities. And I still think it's good. I think it's, really kind of disrespected financially, professionally. It's rough, but if you love the job, if you enjoy it, it can be good. But you kind of do have to have a side hustle, or you gotta marry money, or you have to come from money, a lot of inheritance, or you just have to be willing to live like super cheap, and usually a combination of a lot of those things. But you can make it work. A lot of my colleagues end up basically dropping out of the academic game and going and doing some other field after a while, though, because it is pretty rough out there. But anyways, if y'all have more questions, I'm happy to answer them. I mean, it is related to why you need to try to be as competitive as possible and think ahead about sort of your prospects and what you do. Now, I will say, as a caveat to that, right, like, this is always a struggle that a lot of students have, and just a lot of people in general, is like, do you do a job just for money that maybe you don't like that makes good money, or do you do something that you like that's going to make less money? And that's up to you, right? That's something you have to ask personally. But I will say, I think that a lot of times, and parents are just looking out for your best interest, right, that are out there. They want you to get a job and be successful. But as an academic advisor and as talking with a lot of students, I know that a lot of students feel really pressured into going into a field that they really don't like that much, or that is really outside of their realm of expertise. I remember when I was teaching this one guy, or I wasn't teaching, I was an academic advisor a long time ago when I was an undergrad. Now that was super overqualified too, undergrad academic advisors. I think the average like GPA of the staff there was like, over a 3.9, and they paid us like $6 an hour, or like minimum wage at the time, to do undergrad academic advising. We're like the most overqualified, like underpaid people. Well, I guess except for maybe adjuncts out there. It was ridiculous. But anyways, so when I was doing that job though, I just, this one student still sticks out of my head. He came in, he was almost in tears, and, he was wanting me to sign off on the classes he wanted to take, and he had, I think he was retaking Chemistry 101, and he got like a D in like Biology 101, and just all of this stuff, like really heavy underperformance, and he's just like, I want to take these classes again, or this and this, and I'm like, I was like, what are you trying to, do you have any goals? Like, what are you trying to accomplish so far? And he's like, well, I got to be a doctor. And I was like, you sure? And he's just like, yeah, my dad says I have to be a doctor, or whatever. And I was just like, so you really want to take chemistry again, and this and that? And he's like, yeah, I have to. I was like, okay. And I signed off on it, and I just felt so sad for him, because like, he knows, and I know, we both are sitting there, and we both know he's not going to be a doctor, right? Like, he doesn't seem like he really wants to do it. he just seems like he's not going to be able to accomplish that, right? And so is it worth it for him to try to struggle on and go for this job that's a really awesome job where he is probably going to hate it if he makes it, and it's extremely unlikely that he's going to make it? Or would he be better off, majoring in something like English or majoring in something like history that he might actually enjoy, and he's going to get maybe a lower paying job, but he might actually succeed in it and enjoy his life a little bit more? Because you're going to be doing your job for like half of your waking life a lot of the time. And do you want to spend half of your waking life like doing something that you hate just so you make a little bit more money? For some people the answer is yes. I want to be comfortable in my life, and I want to be able to do some cool stuff in my free time and not have to worry about money. And it's worth it going to a job that I hate or that is going to be really difficult for me to do. And I know that parents are always going to pressure you to try to do a field that gets a job, that gets money so you can pay down loans and be successful because they want the best for you. But, I think that's something that you definitely have to weigh, right? Is, how much, and is there a middle ground somewhere in there? But I would say, definitely while you're young, try to at least consider stuff that you might enjoy doing. I know it's really hard this day and age because loans are so high and there's so much pressure to try to graduate in 4 years. You just don't have the same kind of time to explore that, people back in my era when I got undergrad could. Although a lot of students still explore. I think people change their major like 5 times on average or something. But anyways. So that's another reason, just to circle it back to this assignment and why I think this assignment is so useful for people in doing the kind of research that I'm showing you how to do, is so you can get a preview also of something that you might be interested in, so that you don't necessarily waste a lot of time figuring out something that you could have learned earlier. So for example, if you wanted to, go into law school, for example, right? And just like I wanted to do between jobs, and if I had just gone in there and didn't have any experience, if I didn't research what was going to be going on in law, if I didn't shadow a lawyer, if I didn't talk with lawyers about it, or people who have been involved in the legal system, and I spent 3 years going to law school and I figured out, man, I really hate this, then I'm not sure if I would have or not. But if I did, I'm already saddled with all this debt and I'm committed, right? I've kind of got to do it. At that point, it's tough. Versus if you do research like this beforehand, you look up stuff, you could actually learn, hey, I thought I was interested in this. Hey, I thought I wanted to do this, but I kind of don't. You might have just saved yourself a lot of time doing this activity for this class, because you figure out something that you don't want to do. And that's fine. That's good. That's a good outcome because you're learning stuff and you're helping to sort of figure out how you want to professionalize. So, the main goal is to learn how to rhetorically represent yourself in a professional manner to be persuasive to an employer. But a side objective is helping y'all, learn how to do some of this research and think about what you might want to do down the line to kind of make some better decisions about that. Hey, what's up, Ninja? Is putting economic growth before fiscal responsibility like putting the cart before the horse? Huh. Let me think about that. Economic growth before fiscal responsibility. I'm not... explain to me what you mean a little bit more, because the way I'm interpreting that is I'm not sure how those two are mutually exclusive. Economic growth before fiscal responsibility. Okay, so are you talking about are we talking about education here? Are we talking about the stimulus package? Because I don't want to get too far off on politics. I don't mind talking about stuff that's kind of related to the topic. But if you mean that in terms of education in some way or professionalization that I just mentioned, I can definitely give you some ideas about that. But yeah, just clarify that for me. So I think are you talking about I don't know if you're talking about like I said, the stimulus package and stuff that's going on in the macroeconomy, or if you're talking about taking out loans to get an education for your economic growth, even if it might be fiscally unresponsible. So I'm not sure, but let's clarify that for me real quick, and I will I'll give you an answer. But anyways, okay, well, thank y'all for the questions. I don't mind going on sidetracks. I know that it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot And so I'm happy to do that. And it is within the realm of trying to figure out how to professionalize, thinking about cover letters, thinking about your job and what that might entail. Um, so, yeah, just talking with people. Like I said, talking with people, getting a feel for what's going on in your field, asking around can be very nice. I'll tell you, even looking at grad schools and things like that is really important, right? Because the place where I got my PhD, there were some great people that I worked with, but my ideas and my research really did not fit in very well with what they were doing there because they focused a lot on like gender studies and sexuality and things like that, and like this very I don't know what would be the term for it. That was there was like kind of feminism, which is it's interesting. That's kind of interesting, to me, but that's not my main focus, right? But every single class was all about that, and like almost every grad student was all about that. And so when I wanted to do research on representations of Buddhism or representations of some other type of religiosity or philosophy or whatever else, I was kind of the black sheep in the research. Like I was doing research that a lot of the professors really weren't interested in, that a lot of other grad students really weren't interested in. And so it was like I had a really hard time fitting in with that community. I mean, I had friends, I talked with people, I wasn't like this weird outcast kid or whatever, but I didn't really fit very well with what was going on in that program, right? And so trying to figure that out, trying to look at who teaches there, what's the vibe there, what kind of research interest do they have, because that's the kind of graduate students they're going to attract, and that's the kind of research they're probably going to expect out of you, right? And so noticing those trends, like I mentioned last time with the the business school, right? And just saying, okay, if I want to, if I were wanting to go to law school and I wanted to do something in entrepreneurship, I would say, okay, UT's got some great stuff for that. If I wanted to do like intellectual property law or something with like, the internet and privacy legislation and stuff like that, UT may not be that great for that because they only had one person on their faculty that listed internet law as one of their interests. So, that one person might be cool, that might be enough, but it would be at least worth emailing that person to ask them if you think you would fit in there as far as your research interests and stuff like that. And they'll usually be pretty honest with you. But yeah, just sending out that email to figure that out. So I don't really regret my choice. There was another school. I could have gone to University of Kentucky instead. But it's fine. But that's one thing that I really learned in the process that was never really explained to me is each sort of school and each job, each career is going to have its own personality at that organization. Some of them might be very chill and relaxed and just kind of let you do your own thing. Some of them might be extremely structured. I had a friend who is a mechanical engineer, and he worked for GE for a while in South Carolina, and he just hated it there, and his wife hated it there too, to an extent, right? Like it was just very, it wasn't doing. He was like testing generators and stuff like that, and it just wasn't the kind of science or the projects that he really believed in on a personal level, or that he was really interested in. Just being that far away, his wife stayed here for the first little bit. She was finishing up her nursing degree, so kind of that distance was a little tough on the relationship. They didn't really like the culture down in the town he was stationed in South Carolina. He didn't like the work he was doing, so eventually he switched jobs and came up here, and now he's working on more green energy type of stuff, which he kind of personally believes in and finds more interesting. There's a lot more innovation there. He gets to travel a little bit more. So just trying to understand that stuff, like what kind of projects are you going to be working on? What about the place where you're going to work, the personalities you're going to be working with? Are you going to have to travel a lot? Is that something that you want to do? So just trying to understand those types of cultures can be really helpful for you professionally as well. Prefer to have a different topic will help you or hurt you. I'm not sure what you mean, Jeff. Maybe rephrase that a little bit. Let me go through this example a little bit more while we're here. Dang, this has actually... I was going to make this a relatively short video, and now all of a sudden, people are asking some great questions. Hopefully that's not like TMI or too much of a sidetrack for people. Hopefully it's interesting. If you have any more professional questions like that, I'm happy to answer them. If we have time on stream like this, if it's just kind of a chill day where I'm just letting y'all write a little bit, or you can email me and personally I can tell you what I know, help you figure some stuff out, or point you to, get you in contact with somebody if it's in a different department. But anyways, let's look up a couple of extra people here. So this guy could be interesting. Doesn't teach at a university. Who's our other list? And Ninja, if you want to clarify that question again, I'm happy to answer that for you, but I'm not sure. Once again, like I said, I don't want to go off on a macro economic or political thing if I can. But if you're talking about something related to education and fiscal responsibility, I'm happy to field that. Not that I don't have political opinions about economics and macro things and stuff like that, but I try to make the classes like neutral and apolitical as I possibly can. I try to be fair to all sides, and in general, politics is not usually amazing. I try to not be as political, because we have people of all different political persuasions in class. And, my goal is not to try to indoctrinate people or, spout a bunch of propaganda, but it's just to try to help you become better critical thinkers. So, anyways, okay, let's look up this guy. Let's look up a couple of these other people and see what we can find here. TMS Health Solutions, Sleep Medicine. Okay, so this is like the same kind of guy. He's at the same organization? Okay. So I guess this organization has published one of these books, and so they all of these guys are like in-house and work there. Okay, so he did teach at Harvard for a little bit, but doesn't currently teach anywhere. Okay, hold on. Faculty profile, Northwestern. Okay, so he doesn't teach. It looks like he doesn't have that much there. Bio. Okay, so you can see kind of. So he does teach there. He's an adjunct. So that's kind of what I just described. He's non-tenure. He does have an MD, but he's not tenure track, so he's basically like a part-timer there. But it looks like he, so he may not, if it's someone who's an adjunct, they're probably not going to be teaching graduate classes. You can't in English if you're an adjunct. Like, I can't teach a graduate class. You have to be tenure for it. I think in psychology it might be a little different. I have a friend who teaches a grad class adjunct at Vanderbilt, who is not a full professor. Like, he's a full-time school psychologist, and he also teaches a grad class. So psychology might be a little different. So maybe he can teach a grad class, but I would definitely email and ask. So if you were thinking to go in there to work with this specific guy, you would want to email him and ask, are you actually eligible to teach grad classes? Can I work with you on research projects and things like that? That you can kind of read about him here, see some of the stuff that he has. So Northwestern, if it's not on your list of schools, you could potentially consider it if you really want to work with that person, if you're really interested in their research. I would say, like, finding a person that you want to work with is almost just as important, if not more important, than the actual school where you're going. Even if it's a lower ranked school, if that school, like lower ranked overall national rankings, if that school does exactly what you want to do and they have one of the biggest professionals in the field at that school, go there. So for example, if you want to do 19th century Brit Lit, UT is an awesome department for that, because we have Nancy Henry, who's the #1 George Eliot scholar in the world. UT picked her up from, I think, Binghamton in New York. But anyways, she's a really big deal in the field. And there's a medieval guy too, Roy Liuzza, if you like medieval lit in English, who is one of the best medieval scholars in the world in Beowulf, which is a really old English text. So you'll find that at some universities. That ranking is really deceptive, especially once you go to grad schools, because it's some composite, right? Whereas in reality, all fields are very, very specialized, right? And, sometimes going there and working with that specific person is much more important than the actual rank. because a lot of people are going to know who you worked with, who you worked under, and that person can hook you up. They have connections most of the time. So Nancy Henry, I worked with her when I came in as a master's student at UT, and I didn't really know what I wanted to specialize in, but I took her a grad class with her about Victorian literature, and I was like, man, this is awesome. I really want to do this. I never thought I'd love Victorian literature that much, but she taught it so well, and the texts were so awesome. And so, one of these papers that I submitted to her, she just, sent me an email. She's like, hey, you should apply for this this publication in this magazine. I was like, really? She's like, yeah, I think they'd really like your stuff. I'd never even heard of it. The George Eliot Review, published in England. And I was like, okay. So I edited it, sent it over there. They're like, hey, we'll publish it, and we'll give you $800. Just out of nowhere. I would have never known about that if it wasn't for Dr. Henry suggesting it to me. So that's what I'm saying. When you work with these big wigs in the field, they know stuff. They know people. They know publication, things. They can make stuff happen for you, okay? So that's why you want to work with the big shots that you have a common interest with, where they're going to enjoy you, you're going to enjoy them, and they can hook you up, okay? So that's kind of what you want. I don't think so, Ben. I mean, that's kind of a pointed question, but that is a fair question that a lot of people ask. Is an English degree worthless? I mean, I don't think so. Like I just said previously, it depends on what your priorities are. If you enjoy the field or if you don't enjoy the field. But even if you just go into English and you don't want to teach at a grad school, learning how to communicate effectively can really prepare you for things like law school. They can really prepare you for going into things like advertising, for going into sales. So there are a lot of people that have English degrees that don't go into teaching necessarily. If a lot of jobs don't even care really what your degree is. If you're getting a standard office job in sales or something like that, they just want you to be a good critical thinker, to be innovative, and to really contribute to their organization. So it's that's like asking, and especially if you enjoy the coursework, right? One of the most important things for a lot of jobs is just having a high GPA, let's start with actually completing your degree. And if you do something that you're interested in, then you're much more likely to complete your degree. You're going to enjoy your courses. You're going to, probably make better grades in them. So step one is complete your degree and enjoy it. So yeah, I mean, you could say, oh, well, engineering's going to give much higher job opportunities. Okay, true. But what if you can't pass matrix algebra? What if you can't pass thermodynamics or organic chemistry? I just mentioned that student about the doctor student, right? This guy, his dad was telling him the whole time, hey, you got to be a doctor. And he's thinking, I want to be a doctor. They make a lot of money. It's well, guess what? You also have to pass organic chemistry. You also have to pass, calculus 2 or whatever the requirements are. And not everybody can do that, right? But if kids feel pressure to do that, if they're just I got to keep doing this, I got to do it. My dad says I got to do it. And then junior year, they drop out and they're $75,000 in debt because they tried to do something that either they don't want to do or they just can't do. Is that better than if he had, majored in something like English or history or whatever, enjoyed the field, he was pretty good at it, finished his degree, and got a job in sales where he's making, $60,000 a year in sales. So it's a lot of it's going to depend on the person and sort of what they end up doing with that degree. Well, I would be careful with the pointed rhetoric there. I don't think that's necessarily true, Ben. I don't think a lot of jobs are going to see it that way. I don't think that's necessarily true either. As far as everyone being capable of doing that, I don't think that's true. I mean, only 20% of people in America right now actually finish with a 4-year degree, so I don't think everyone's capable of it. And I don't think, there just aren't enough jobs. Like there aren't enough if there aren't 300 million jobs for astrophysicists and brain surgeons out there. Like somebody, has to teach high school. Somebody has to be a psychiatrist. Somebody has to be a psychologist. Somebody has to run a museum. So I agree that STEM can provide some good jobs if you're proficient at it, if you're good at it, but I think that it's unrealistic to think that it's good for everybody, that everyone can do it, or even that everyone should do it, because there's a lot of other stuff that needs to work in this country, right? Especially, even if you're going from the practical side, like business, and things like that. That's not included in STEM, right? But like advertising, logistics, all that stuff is extremely important. So, anyways. So, okay, well, at least I gave you guys a little bit of an idea here. We didn't get to finish the exercise, but hopefully just looking up some of this stuff, thinking about some of the things that we mentioned, who you're going to work with, the kinds of projects you're going to work on, what you might be interested in. Hopefully that gives you some ideas there. Maybe. STEM is good, but I think that, it can be a little overblown too, and like who's qualified for STEM and, just how many jobs are out there and available. Things like going into computer science, things like going into computer science can definitely be good. I'm not saying that those jobs are bad. They definitely are good. And there are certain merits to that, right? Like a lot of people do get a degree in English, and a lot of people do get a degree in history and, some of these other fields. And yeah, they do have a hard time finding a job. Maybe they aren't, making as much money as they like. But, but I think that making absolute statements like that is not necessarily, correct for everybody. So, you're right that a lot of people, there are definitely people who regret majoring in the humanities and not something that, they believe would directly give them another job opportunity. But I think if you go into it and you really enjoy, doing what you're doing, and that you may not necessarily make as much money as other people, that it still can be a pretty good field. Well, it doesn't necessarily matter what parents want, though. Okay, well, if you think money is everything in life, I guess your philosophy makes perfect sense. To an extent, like, you're not wrong. Like, parents are paying a lot of money, right? Like, a parent who pays $100,000, goes into debt $100,000 to have their kid, go to school and then not succeed at something. Obviously, that's going to be frustrating, right? But at the same time, people have to be able to make decisions on their own, too, to an extent. I don't know that that's necessarily true, Ben. But, if you have that, like, if that's your belief, then that's fine, man. If you want to go out there and get as much money as you can, I think that's all good. But, I don't think that's necessarily the path for everybody. So it's not like you're not wrong. Like, I think that a lot of people do think that way and feel that way, and that's perfectly fine. But, the other end of the coin is also true. And I'll tell you that as I'm getting a bit older, and a lot of my friends and colleagues are getting a bit older, getting to be in their 30s, there are a lot of people that do something that's STEM. Like, I just had one of my friends who's a nurse practitioner now, and, she makes really good money. She's married to the engineer that I talked about, and they're a happy couple for the most part, but she just told me we were at a kid's birthday party, one of my relatives' birthday parties, a few months ago, and she was just like, I hate my job. She's like, but I can't get out because I'm committed to it, right? And that's common with a lot of nurses, actually. Nursing is an important field. Definitely, we need more nurses to go out there. But that, that can go into any field. Sometimes people, you get into your 30s and you just wonder, like, what if, you just did something that you thought was really practical, and then you're asking yourself, what about this other thing that I was interested in that I could have done, growing up? So, you're not wrong. Like, definitely people should heavily consider, hey, do you understand job prospects are difficult? You may not make enough money. Are you still interested in doing this? And, you know, some people are. So I think it's, you know, you got to consider your side of it as well, what you're talking about there. Think about practicality. Think about money. You got to pay bills. You got to keep the lights on. You know, you got to save up. If you're planning on having kids in the future, you know, you want to be able to set them up to have a reasonable life, to send them off to college or do whatever else they want to do. I don't think everyone has to go to college either. I think that trades are definitely a real, if we're talking about being really practical, you know, just being something like a plumber or an electrician out of high school and having no student debt, making a lot of money, you know, all that stuff is also a really good option for a lot of kids. But anyways, but anyway, so I think you're not wrong. It's tough. It's definitely really tough, and that's why this assignment I think is really good, just to get y'all to think about professionalization, how to represent yourself as a professional, but also, like I said earlier, just to get you to think about your field, what you might actually be doing. Is that something that you want to be doing, or do you want to consider something else? So, like I said, I've seen it both ways, where people, you know, get a humanities degree and they wish they'd done something else, or they go into a different field, and you know, other people, you know, go into a professional field and they wish they'd done something else. I'll tell you that being in the humanities personally, I would think it's a good idea. Even if I went off and did something else, I still would have done it, because I feel like I learned a ton. Like, I'm a much better critical thinker. I'm much more insightful, I think, into other people, into other sort of ideas, other cultures, and things like that. That helps me appreciate, you know, people a lot more, my friends, my family, other people out there. I feel like I'm a lot more empathetic and understanding. I think that enriches me as a person, makes me more innovative, makes me more creative. So, I mean, a lot of that is not even just about a career. It's about personal growth. If you're in a field that you're really invested in and interested in, you know, you can really grow as a person, you know, however you want to define or think about that. I mean, you can do that in, you know, a STEM field or a cutthroat, you know, like business field or something like that. You definitely can as well. But I'm just saying that sometimes it's not even all about the career path and the job aspects and things like that. A lot of it's, you know, can also be personal enrichment. But people's opinion of you. Anyways, okay. What's up, Ben? Anyways, okay, I think that's about it. So you're asking, you know, legit questions that are that a lot of students probably have on their mind as far as the practicality of jobs and degrees and stuff like that. But we've kind of reached our end here. We are at about 122. Yeah, I guess Ellie. I guess he's just a random person that wants to check out a 4-person stream. I just assumed it might be a pseudonym of some student in class that was just feeling a little feisty today. But the stream's done anyways. It's fine. You know, I really don't care if other people from the public want to come in, you know, and listen in on stuff. That's fine with me. But you know, that's why I tell you guys, don't say like personal stuff about yourself. You know, because it is YouTube. Although I've heard on Zoom, just on a last note, I saw something on Zoom that like New York is suing them about privacy concerns. And I know we got an email from our director about like Zoom bombing. I don't know exactly what that is, but you'd have like all of these unexpected people like listening in on your Zoom and stuff like that. So, you know, that's one of the reasons why I, you know, chose to not go into Zoom, because I knew it'd have technical difficulties or weird things with privacy or all that stuff. So that's why I just decided to stick it with YouTube, because everybody knows YouTube is going to be a public forum for the most part. Everyone's familiar with it. But anyways, okay. Well, that's gonna be it. That's fine. I mean, I think Ben has been relatively civil in here, so that's okay. But even with kind of a little bit of a troll name and some pointed questions, but that's okay. Anyways, okay. But okay. Well, Rory's ready. Rory's ready for some snacks. But anyways, okay. Well, thank y'all very much for the stream. And make sure that you turn in your Project 4 by Sunday. Let me know if you have any more questions. If you want me to review a draft, I know there's still a couple of those drafts out there that I'm going to look at, and I'll give you some comments over the next couple of days. Let me know if you want some help narrowing down a topic for this Project 5. We'll work on it on Tuesday next week, and then Thursday we're off for spring recess, aka Easter break. And then we'll finish out the rest of the semester from there. So finish the Project 4s. That's number 1 this week, but try to narrow down, try to find a field, try to think about some of these things we thought about for Project 5. Let me know if you have any questions about it, and then we'll work on it more on next Tuesday. So anyways, that's going to be it. Thank y'all very much. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.